Alright, and we're back to Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins. So, we're playing this is the second demo, don't worry. There's a reason why I'm going, because unlike with the first demo, we're actually going to pick up immediately where we left off. So let's see what happens when we punch Chaos Advent out of his misery.
So, wait. So if I understand correctly, this second demo starts where the original one started, but goes further.
It has all the content from the first demo, just more added in, including what happens after this.
Let me guess. He turns into the Emperor from Final Fantasy II.
That makes no sense.
No.
Yes. What little
Old
sense
man
we have from this game
Jenkins.
so far.
It's me, Austin.
So it turns out it's a Nier character?
Garland was Samus Aran all along.
Seriously, her design, specifically her clothes, just scream Nier.
Wait, Garland was a girl all along? Huh.
No, she's gonna explain who she is, Joe.
Mine's going crazy.
So the crystals are going crazy, meaning... Yes, she's the fourth Warrior of Light.
Why was she Garland?
She's gonna explain.
Neon.
There you go,
Also,
there's a crystal.
She really looks like to be.
Guess I was right.
Huh. Feels like
Well, her dress reminds me more of Kaine.
Oh, this is the scene that's been getting memed to death.
Yes, hold on, Shira.
The journey took its toll. One by one we fell, until only I remained.
Oh, the pain
Was
and
then that I
anguish.
finally realized the truth. Chaos isn't a man or a monster.
Sure.
It's a woman!
Chaos is just a fairy.
Sure.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Right.
This despair that eats away at people's hearts. It's easy to blame a single thing for all of that. It gives people.
Oh, actually, it's this old asshole named
Sweetie, don't worry.
Xehanort.
No, don't worry, sweetie. Chaos is very real.
So I decided to become a sacrifice. I offered myself to the darkness and prayed to become chaos.
Why?
Hold on, she's
The
explaining.
heroes would defeat me.
So she would hope that people killing her would or defeating her at least would
That's
bring...
dumb.
Hold on.
bullshit.
Yeah.
hold on, guys, hold on.
Why?
Hold on. Listen all the way.
Okay, I know it's redundant, Pedro, but I had to ask it. Did you actually edit that in?
No, I did not.
No, he didn't.
Limp Bizkit is in this game for some reason.
Why did you put Linkin Park?
And I'm not, by the way, Shiroi, I'm not kidding. That's a song by Limp Bizkit, by the way. They got Limp Bizkit to make a song for this game.
I'm sorry. Why are you coming, miss? I thought you believed that there.
She's explaining now. Remember, the prophecy says that there's 4 Warriors of Light. Remember, that's what happens in Final Fantasy 1. So yeah, hold on.
Then show me chaos. Do that, and I might even respect you.
So basically, it's the equivalent of, well, the script told me I have to come with you, so I'm coming with you.
So there you go, guys. We found our 4th Warrior of Light. The 4 warriors are finally together.
And she's literally only coming just because, well, the plot says there needs to be 4.
Basically,
so
yeah.
4. Okay. I'm convinced at the end, this game is going to end with the curtain coming back and these guys all being revealed to be actors in a movie being made off of World of Final Fantasy.
So yeah, here is the map screen. Okay, so based on this demo, at least I don't know the full extent, but I'm assuming it probably will be like this. Stranger of Paradise does not have a proper overworld map. Instead, you just select the locations from this screen, which would be fine, whatever. It's not ideal, but it's serviceable for its purpose. There are more tutorials that were added in, but we're not going to go through the tutorials because I don't need them. Let's just focus on stuff. There's also a side quest to be done at the Chaos Shrine. However, the side quest is just a boss rush of sorts that doesn't have any story in it. So I'm trust me, everything that's in that side mission we're gonna see in this demo in the reference wetlands anyway. So don't worry, you're not missing anything.
If I may, this game feels like a fusion of Shadow the Hedgehog with Looney Tunes back in action. Like it's overly edgy, but it feels so self-aware to the point where, yeah, I'm expecting something akin to the ending of Looney Tunes back in action, where it's revealed that this is all just a movie they're shooting.
That's the thing, Jova. That's the thing, Jova. If you could check the producer's comments on the Chaos memes, they say that it was not the reaction they were expecting.
They were a bit distressed about it.
However, to his credit, Theo, he did take it in stride by saying, "Well, I guess it's better than being ignored." So
yeah, they essentially drove a rationalized bet. It's still publicity, so why not?
Sure.
You know, Square making an incredibly ludicrous story and acting surprised with a Pikachu face. That it's not being taken seriously as such a Square Enix move.
Anyway, yeah, I'm actually gonna have to side with Deji on this one, Jova. The fact that it's sincere, the fact that the developers are completely unaware of how this is perceived by people is what makes it all the funnier. It's kind of like with The Room. If The Room was was self-aware,
I absolutely get. No, I absolutely get that. I'm just saying it's such a Square Enix move for them to be taking all this ludicrous stuff serious and then acting Pikachu face shocked that nobody's taking it seriously. That said, I will say this. I think that cutscene alone may have endeared me more to this game than anything else I've seen before. If only because it does give me a better idea of what I may be in for. Like, okay.
Oh, you can still go only 3 at that time. Sorry, go on, Jova.
This isn't. That is weird that you can.
Yeah, it is weird.
Especially if you have only 4 party members the entire time, unless we're going to add on more somehow.
Yes.
It is possible, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. And by the way, there's multiplayer now. Yes, players can actually play for the dungeons in co-op. One of you, the two of you, or I'm guessing maybe even more. A total of 3 players, I think, can play with all the 3 party members that you have right now in your party. So that's actually pretty cool. So
I do wonder if the idea is like, at first, it's kind of like Final Fantasy 1 with the 4 Warriors of Light. But then later on, we're going to get stuff parroting, I guess trying to pay an homage to, since, as far as the makers know, this is meant to be taken seriously. But whatever. For the sake of simplicity, let's call it a parody of later games where, there's actually more than just 4 party members, so it turns out the prophecy of there being only 4 Warriors of Light was a load of horse hockey, and there can actually be more people helping out.
Alright, so let's start the Refren Wetlands. And this dungeon is actually inspired by the Sunleft Waterscape from Final Fantasy XIII.
Yeah, I was about to mention, I saw at least partially one of the trailers, and one thing that they try to do is to address apparently a complaint that people had about the lighting, which they thought was too dark. But I thought the idea was making it gloomy. Like, when it's, with the fixes they're done with this, they just make it, like most of Square games released these days. Sorry.
Well, the Chaos Shrine still looks the same, too, if that helps you.
No, I saw the comparison. It's actually more lit, less gloomy.
I knew it. I told you.
Where is your proof, Jack?
Chaos Teapot Paradox, Jova?
Brofist.
I just love how Neon, the girl who made an entire kingdom, castle, and whatnot, as like this villain she masqueraded as, is now just, abandoning all of that to go frolicking off with these idiots in the forest here.
So Shiro, what are your thoughts on that previous cutscene we saw?
I've seen it a lot.
Oh, really?
I get the feeling. I get the feeling this game's gonna turn out to be.
What?
It's gonna be like the Final Fantasy VII remake, where these guys, are tricked into being the so-called Warriors of Light, but what they're actually sent here to do, inadvertently by the main villain of that game, is to fuck everything up so that he wins without having to do much of anything.
Oh, Soul Burst.
Jesus.
Oh my.
Actually, Greaves,
never gets old.
You might not be too far off, because Deji also was telling me the other day this. Essentially, Nomura wanted it to be a twist, but with the trailer release, the TGS, he pretty much admitted that people have guessed it, first hand. Oh, there
So
we go.
it's not.
That's not a lot to mention.
Hold on. Let's see it finish.
That our protagonist actually is the canonical Garland, and the game is about essentially how he becomes that. So it's more about understanding
Wait.
how he gets there, but originally, yes, Joe, it was supposed to be the plot twist.
So what you're saying is that Jack is actually
blood.
Garland?
Hold on, I have to mention this. So, Shiroi, can't get much more bleeding edgy than this.
No, thank you.
Ha!
Yeah.
Whoa!
Alright, so,
Also, Joe,
so-
if you haven't
so-
seen the if you haven't seen the trailer, it's literally his last name. He's literally called Jack Garland.
Yeah.
So,
Oh boy!
Com-
So what next? Are we get in the part 3 of the 7 remake? We're going to have Jeff Sephiroth.
Okay.
so what?
Okay,
what
first
you're
of all,
saying-
some villains of the Final Fantasy franchise do have a last name, so it's not too uncommon to think about that.
Yeah,
Billy-
it's not really.
Billy Sin.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, the trailer reveals that this is essentially the origin of Garland.
Basically,
yeah.
combined with the cutscene that we just had with Neon, if I had to hazard a guess, is that again this is pre-time loop, but the idea behind it is that Chaos is not yet formed, but the whole 4 Warriors of Light appear is like a cyclical thing, you know, and whoever gets corrupted or something becomes the Garland armor, which would explain, you know, how this, this rejected edgelord will eventually become that.
Hold on, let me explain
know,
this. Okay, so yeah, just like with the Sunlove Waterscape in Final Fantasy 13, you press that ball thing, and it even has the same colors as in 13 to change. So basically, what you're literally watching here is a second attempt at the Sunlove Waterscape. Basically.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
Square do seem to like to revisit concepts.
Not
of
to
Final
mention,
Fantasy
13
a
2
lot.
already had that for the Arctil step,
Sure.
section, which was much bigger and was even, expanded upon. So
I
it's
actually like
not
this
something
outfit for
completely new.
Neon, actually.
What job is the sword fighter? Okay.
She's a sword fighter.
So,
yeah.
so if I understand correctly, Square Enix, the same company that hid the truth about the 7 remake for all those years, pretty much just spoiled the big twist of this game in a
It's not so much that they spoiled it, it's mostly that they made it incredibly obvious to guess.
Not to
Trevor.
mention, Jova, Nomura basically confirmed ultimately details in an interview. But if I had to hazard a guess, Jova, the feedback that the 7
Hold on.
remake got... Oh,
He literally smashes it into the ground until it explodes.
the feedback that Square Enix got from the 7 remake part 1 was probably enough to make Nomura think, they might not, react well if we pull this kind of thing a second time, so might as well try to cover our bases.
You know, it's kind of the weird thing, though. Like, with the original Final Fantasy, Garland is, of course, the fallen hero. We get that. The ironic thing, though, is that the game ends with Garland becoming a good guy again due to time travel shenanigans and whatnot. So, this is about the original fall that technically gets retconned by the events
It's
of
even-
Final
Well,
Fantasy.
Joe, if you think about
I
it,
didn't explain... Sorry, go on, Pedro.
Joe, but if you think about it, it kind of works like Darth Vader. Yet again, Star Wars parallels, because remember, that's how Anakin starts off as a good guy who falls to the dark side,
yeah.
and then eventually, way years later, he gets redeemed in some way and becomes a good guy. So it kind of works like Darth Vader.
That's however because some piece of information is missing because, like I mentioned only briefly at the end of our Final Fantasy 1 PSP run, the Dissidia games actually do provide another origin story for Garland, one that's a bit more complicated. Essentially, he was an augmented child, like kind of like Sephiroth, which was created in vitro and experimented by the Lupinians, and they used a recipient, like kind of like a humanoid android, for comforting purpose, which was in the shape of a woman, which resembled a bit Princess Sarah, which will explain also why he kidnapped her later. But ideally, I forgot exactly which details, but the Garland child was kidnapped through a portal, at some point, and that was one thing that corrupted him. And when he came back, he literally slaughtered all the summoning spirits that were present in the first Final Fantasy, which will explain why there are none in the actual main game. It's kind of a retcon that they put in there.
Let me also answer something.
And keep in mind, keep in mind, Lumura started the idea of developing this kind of story right after the CDO 12, which is the game that has those reports. And he purposely mentioned that he wanted to make this the story about a quote-unquote an angry man. So there is that.
To answer Teo's question from earlier, well, Teo, remember, both demos have surveys for people to input their feedback, so maybe that was one of the primary requests from the.
Maximilian also complained about this during his run. I have seen it, but I do believe.
What did he complain about?
The lighting. Essentially,
Yeah.
for many people, the first demo was too dark to, and I can understand.
I think even I mentioned that during our playthrough of it as well.
I can understand, but I get the idea that they put the switch onto the other extreme. Now the game kind of has lost a bit of the personality, the gloomy personality that it had beforehand.
I mean,
to
be fair, given that we're in a more bright and colorful area in the game, I get the feeling that maybe it was just meant for that castle and not meant for the game's personality as a whole to be like that. Like, again, maybe it's akin to how nobody's taking the story seriously. Like, again, maybe the gloomy thing was just something we perceived as opposed to what they actually intended for it to come off as in mind. Especially now. Well, yeah, again, but unfortunately what we like apparently didn't run parallel with what they wanted to get across. Regardless, though, it is weird, though, how so Square originally touted this as a remake of Final Fantasy 1. Well,
no.
Okay,
they mentioned
a retelling or something.
Yeah, a reimagining of sorts.
And now it turns out that, no, this is actually a prequel to 1.
Well, remember, Joe, but that was it being a prequel. It was exactly the plot twist at the end. But now people have guessed it. So.
Well, okay. Well, so I mean, I guess my thing is like, well, they probably could have just been clear with this being a prequel to 1, and it would have been just as fine.
Again,
that
Jova, does it sound familiar to you?
That's the thing, Jova.
A 7 remake.
Again, I get the idea they just wanted to avoid another potential, accusation of false publicity or something. They wanted, okay, let's try to avoid risks.
Yeah, because last year that happened twice. Once with the 7 remake and then with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity.
Okay, I'm talking strictly about Square Enix. Also, why do you do that to a poor tree?
Because there's a
we
dark.
needed to cross.
Not to mention, Teo, there's a dark hole in there that we need to kill.
The tree was asking for it in that regard.
That too.
Is that Pedro taking revenge for the Tree of Life movie?
By the way, I'll be sure to take a look at it. Yeah. And I'll mention it later. Yeah, so that's basically it. Right now we're trying to see what we can find, and we're going to find a boss in here. Keep in mind, remember, this is the demo, so not all cutscenes. There may be some missing cutscenes because remember, we didn't even get to see the actual proper opening of the game.
Yeah.
These demos are clearly here, as shown by the inclusion of surveys for players to include their feedback on the gameplay, which I already did.
Again, I will say this. This second demo, in addition to now knowing that this is a prequel to Final Fantasy 1, surprise, surprise, it makes the game more endearing for me than it was before. Again, okay, that's not to say that the game didn't have endearing qualities before, but unless you were really just into the whole grunge and edgy stuff, the game felt aimless to me. But now knowing what it has more so in mind definitely does help out a bit here and there. I'll say this. I feel like if people feel like they need to mislead people on how a project is going to be all the time just to get the surprise twist wow factor to the point where it becomes predictable, that's a problem. Like, you don't always need to go like 70 steps ahead and hiding the stuff. Like, you can sometimes just be upfront with this or that. Like, hey, okay. It's like if they tried to make a prequel to 7 and go, this is a story where you play as Sephiroth, except, no, we're trying to hide from you that you're playing as Sephiroth. Like, come on, don't you think people would actually love it more if it turned out we knew from the get-go that we're playing as Sephiroth pre-Crazy Days?
It can work, I will argue, like, with Split being a surprise sequel to Unbreakable worked really well, I will argue.
Okay. Tinier details like that can help, especially when you know overall Split still works as its own film. What I'm talking is something that's like, blatant in this regard here and there.
Sure.
Okay, I'm not saying companies should never do it, But it does feel like if they had gone through that with this would have started sending a trend for Square Enix projects. And like, well, when it starts to become a trend, it starts to become predictable and just...
Yeah, sure, I understand.
It's also weird, well, because I'm talking about strict in terms of programming and stuff, because this is the same team that did the Neo games. And the only major thing that might be slightly different from those is that you actually have, an actual full party running along with you,
Yeah.
But most of the core mechanics are basically the same.
Yeah.
So it's still weird, though, that they add so many things that.
Well, okay, you know what? Knowing now that he becomes Garland, I guess it makes sense that he is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Although it's funny thinking back to how he goes from all this intrusive and very intensive rants, monologues, and dialect to when we first meet him in Final Fantasy 1, where he goes, "I'm Garland, and I will knock you all down." I guess when he became a villain, he decided to simplify things more.
There's actually one major difference that I noticed too. Aside gameplay-wise, unlike with the Neo games and the first demo, they toned down the loot in the sense that you don't get loot all the freaking time like you did in the Neo games and in the first demo of this. So yeah, that was that's for the best. That worked fine in Neo, but even in Neo, I will argue they could be a bit too overly generous with the loot.
Really?
Well, that's the thing, Joe. You're constantly getting loot, like on a second by second basis, and you're constantly having to go and check. And it's just it can get a bit frustrating that you
compared to Dark Souls, Neo has a lot more micromanagement, Joe.
Yeah, so it can. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind micromanagement necessarily, but it can sometimes be a bit frustrating that you constantly have to micromanage like every 10 seconds, So fortunately, they did tone it down in here. Now things are a lot more balanced, fortunately. So yeah, to the development team's credit, they are indeed taking feedback from the surveys and indeed improving the game based on it. So yeah, just like what Tomoe Ozano is doing with the games that his team makes, like Octopath Traveler and Brave of the Vault 2 and stuff like that. So yeah,
and I'll give it.
Go on.
Oh, go on.
No.
I'll give it credit. The feedback is actually making the way that they responded to the feedback is making me immensely more interested in the game now. The cat was evil. It had to go down.
To be fair, I will say something, Java, but yes, Curl are kind of bastards. Me and Pedro have never showed that much of their capabilities, but yeah, they are some of the more nasty monsters of the franchise.
They are, which is rather satisfying to burst their head and make them explode.
Sorry, go on, Pedro, mention it.
Okay, there is a hope apparently going across some people that that eventually will end up with the characters will end up wearing the designs more like the ones from the actual game, the first game. I mean, I don't know about you, but I just can't imagine these guys wearing those outfits.
It probably won't even be, because again, we know that these guys are not the actual Warriors of Light now.
There might be some irony, if Jack maybe does get the Yoshitaka Amano version of the armor of the iconic Warrior of Light, because to be honest, that one is different from the in-game model that the Knight Warrior class had. It's a bit more elaborate, blue instead of red. He has an helmet and stuff.
I'm willing to bet that he's going to actually end up in the Garland armor by the end of the game.
Obviously. I get it.
No. I mean, while you're still playing as him, there'll become a point where he needs to don the Garland armor or whatnot, and maybe his friends die, and then he decides to work for the Kingdom of Corneria.
Let me mention something here.
And
there you go. Eye patch to make it look cool. All right, I think I'm going to give the iPad. No, it's not yet. Okay, never mind.
It's interesting that it's taken 35. By the time this game comes out, it will have taken 35 years to give a backstory to one of these characters.
Anyway, another thing that I will also say about. By the way, Terry, you were talking about Neon being a sword fighter. That's the thing. Everybody can have any job. It's just that
No, I was just checking which one was equipped at that moment.
that her default job is sword fighter, as implied by that cutscene with that sword.
Yeah, with the stock.
Yeah, so all the characters have their default job. In case of Jack, it's swordsman, for example. But everybody can have any job. As a result, you can experiment and customize the characters according to however the hell you want. So if you want to go full swordsman with brute force, like I'm guessing Dwebs would, you can do it. If you want to make everybody a mage, you can make everybody a mage. There you go. Never gets old. So yeah, the gameplay is pretty fantastic, I will argue. I actually have a lot of fun playing this game. Like it's Team Neo. I mean, their games are awesome, so this is not really a surprise that the gameplay is a lot of fun. And again, the story, while cringy, it's just hilarious as well. So honestly, I'm all for it, to be honest with you.
Now that I actually know what the story is about as well, I can also enjoy it in addition to all the corniness as well. Again, I'm not going to say like I wasn't interested in it before, but it just felt like I had no idea what's going on. Like, not even a semblance of what's going on, except for some guy wants to kill Chaos and this or that.
Yeah,
but now that I have a better idea, I'm like, okay, I am immensely more interested in this. Also, the fact that environments won't just be dark, gray, gloomy and all now does help as well.
Mm-hmm. What else?
I think it's just okay. I'm sorry, Square, but it really just feels like they may have misrepresented the game when it was first shown at E3. Because man, the perception I have of this game back then compared to now is like light years apart.
Like someone actually flipped the switch to change the weather conditions, Jova.
Very funny.
But all right. The only complaint that I do have from this demo is that, unlike the first demo, the performance can take some dips. Like there's going to be some frame rate drops here and there, and sometimes it can get a bit. Sometimes they even drop to the 20s, but it's rare. My guess is this demo was made because remember the build that they used to make this demo was still not as polished as the build that they used for the previous demo, but it's okay. I'm confident that these issues will be ironed out by release.
Mind you, well, this is the PS5 version, so if this is the performance for the demo right now for this version, I wonder how the PS4 and Xbox One version will actually run out in the end.
Well, remember too, like I said, like a lot can change because the optimization comes last in the development of games. So obviously, if they were still working on a build that hadn't gone through the optimization process yet, of course the frame rate is not going to be ideal. I think it's important to at the very least wait till the game comes out before we actually.
That is true, Pedro, but for games like Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and Tales of Zestiria, having a later, like a previous gen console version, ended up being detrimental for sales and reception. So I actually wonder if, considering how it's not super, not effective, but it can't run smoothly all the time just for this version, alone. I actually do wonder if it was a wide idea to also have a late gen version, or at best to have one at launch, and not. The idea would be not having one at launch and then do it later. I know that that new game made by the Borderlands team, by Gearbox, I think it's called God's Fall. That one ended up being detrimental for them because no one was still caring and it reeked more of desperation. But I do believe that for a game like this, probably would work a bit better. I don't know. It
also helps that this game is a linear game. It doesn't have open wide areas. It seems, at least so far. I mean, it doesn't have an overworld map.
If it's a Souls-like game, Jova, it's basically that. A bit more open environment, but concentrated in smaller areas.
Yeah, basically.
So if I understand correctly, all the characters can literally access any class, correct?
Yes.
Like with the job system.
Yes, you go to battle settings and you can change whatever job they have. However, right now I'm just trying to keep them all to their just for the sake of variety, just so that not everybody's doing the same thing. So.
And this is a case where you can you play as any of them, or do you always control?
You always control.
another
Well,
one?
I can't speak for the final game, but in these demos, you can only control Jack. That being said, thanks to the job system, there's still plenty of variety for what you can do with just Jack. To be fair.
And I can see that compared to the first demo, your allies are more, into instead of just standing around awkwardly.
Thank goodness for that. So, is there anything that differentiates the characters and whatnot, or is it pretty much they can literally be anything you want them to be?
They can be any. They're literally going the Final Fantasy V route. They can be whatever you want them to be, basically.
And again, Jova, considering the default costumes of these three dorks, it's for the better.
So I guess when it comes to choosing, who's on the team, it's literally just about do you prefer a sausage fest or do you want a girl in there?
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing Neon for this demo, because the previous demo was a sausage fest, so let's bring in a feminine touch for a change.
It really does beg the question, why not just have all four of them playable, though? Again, I mean, there's okay, unless maybe there's a story bit where one of them goes missing or whatnot, it seems like you can just focus on leveling up 3 and boom, you're fine.
I'm guessing Nomura is still operating on his Kingdom Hearts mindset, where you play as Sora and Donald and Goofy are controlled by the AI, that kind of stuff. He's still operating on that mindset.
Even Kingdom Hearts 3 actually broke onto that front.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing he's still. Well, I guess this is just how they're used to doing these things. I mean, even
Also,
I thought I would do this because I felt like that this would make Neon look a bit cool, like with the eye patch and everything. Since you also like eye patches, what do you think?
Fine. Yay.
All right.
I guess.
Okay. Anyway,
It's a shame this game is fully voice acted, because we would have a lot of fun doing some voice acting for this game.
Well, sorry, go on, Jova. Sorry.
But how involved is Nomura with this game anyway?
He's the creative producer, Jova, meaning he had the like Teo said earlier. He's the one who had the original idea.
Yeah.
And even though he's not directing,
my
and
God.
Nojima, who's his go-to writer, is writing the game. And remember, this is kind of a passion project for him, basically.
So now I'm even less surprised that the dialogue is so up its own arse and that they were surprised that people laughed at it. Again, that's not to say that this will be terrible.
Sorry.
Basically, they're reminding him.
Do now. Thanks.
Yeah, basically. By the way, he did say that if you prove chaos, that you would start to respect you. Did I? I don't remember. so it was a nice banter right there. It was just that we talked a bit over it.
Okay. So just the people who talk, I'm guessing that's dictated by who you chose throughout in your party, because...
No, actually, no, I was able to check too. Even if you don't have a certain somebody in their party, they will still have their lines.
Oh, the missing one is in your dimensional pocket. Okay.
Basically.
Okay, it really just surprises me all the more that they don't just have it that all four are out and playable.
Yeah, it is weird. Again, I'm guessing they just went full. Okay, usually we have this thing where we have. I guess Nomura just went with the Kingdom Hearts mindset when telling Team Neo what to make. I guess I don't know.
Which is weird again, because the iconic story of F1 is about the 4 Warriors of Light. So again, doing the limitations that started to be implemented with Final Fantasy VII onto maximum party members on the team just feels odd.
It does.
I got it.
What?
The 4 Warriors of Light, one of them was just an illusion all along.
Well, apparently,
wasn't
kind. Considering we're gonna do the thing where Jack turns out to be Garland, kind of.
Yeah, it's gonna turn out that they're not the actual 4 Warriors of Light. They're
usually with that kind of twist leaves.
Just actors.
Usually with that kind of twist leaves, it's with the fact that it's usually hinted when in cutscenes, characters do not get acknowledged, other than your main guy. So if the game does that, you might be onto something.
Mm-hmm.
So, will we ever figure out what is Garland's beef with Chaos? Which is kind of ironic, given what he'll
Chaos
go on
is
to
a very
do in Final
That
Fantasy
one we don't know yet, Jova.
Well,
For all we might
Chaos is a very nice fellow.
we might still run on the idea that these are people from the real world, having an isekai and being instructed by chaos, which parallels kinda the themes, story, and deconstruction elements that were present, mind you,
Even
in
that
Mobius Final Fantasy.
Either that, or this turns out to be something like Shaq Fu when they went into the closet, and this is the second world or something.
Oh, please, thank you.
Wasn't that funny? It turns out Garland was an isekai protagonist who became a villain.
It's
Which would explain his tendencies in the Dissidia games, where he mentions that he doesn't really particularly care of any outcome because he just mentions that he will jump into another cycle.
Now that would be a light novel title. I went into another world but became the villain.
Overlord.
there we
That's
go.
pretty much Overlord. Which is an awesome series. Go check it out.
Yeah, so yeah. Well, I don't know, Tail. Honestly, I will argue the... Oh, hold on. Cactuar! Alright, let's see how I make this Cactuar explode.
If you even manage to hit it, usually these fuckers are super agile.
That's okay, Tail. Firaga. There we are. And now, look at this.
God, you burned it alive.
Oh no!
The squeal. Why?
I love that animation though. He casually picks it. He casually picks Cactuar up and then just casually throws it up and then it explodes.
Okay, here we go. On one hand, the Cactuars are assholes in a way. They keep dodging your attacks and they can hit really hard if you're unprepared. On the other hand, you can just, Jack, you cannot just brutalize the poor fucker.
Okay. Now I'm definitely convinced. Yes, okay. Maybe they said this is a story about him becoming the villain. Are we sure he isn't already the villain?
Well, yeah, remember, Joe, like I mentioned, Nomura intended this to be, again, in his own words, the story of an angry man.
Maybe that's just it, maybe that's just it, Joe, but he's just angry.
It's pure Doom Marine energies, and I'm all for it.
Can we make those little creatures with sharp knives explode?
Sometimes it's nice
God,
to
hold on. I also love this one. The way we make the Shadow Lord explode is we literally take his staff from his hands and we stab him with the staff.
Sometimes it's nice to have deeper motivations, a complex emotion and everything. Sometimes you just want to kill things.
Exactly. See, it's like she always said. Let's just have some fun. See.
So basically, it's that meme picture. You're often calm, but don't you just,
want to go ape shit.
Go ape shit?
It's the Doom Slayer talking about to Samus, yeah. Though then again, in hindsight, this is the kind of RPG that finally Undertale will try to deconstruct in themes, because without spoiling too much, the message behind the genocide round of Undertale is meant, as an overall critique of most JRPGs. The problem is that it's the specifics that they mention in that are usually not applicable, because most JRPGs have like an excuse for the theming. I know that I'm super generic, but because I don't want to spoil literally anything for those who still don't know about it. With this game, yeah, I can get this game, totally fits that.
This is why, this could be an interesting thing. Like, what if it's actually that these guys are the bad guys? Because, look, for all intents and purposes, the beings that we fought could very well have just been minding their own business. And
that might be true, Jova, but we still have as far as we know from the trailers, the premise is still kind of the same. The world is still in ruin, and the crystals of power have lost potency, so they need to be revived. And monsters rampaging are a result of that. So we need to see if that is actually true, or it was like tomfoolery to attract, Jack and the others to do someone else's bidding.
But consider this, Tio. We only have their words to go off of it. We've never actually seen the words of like
again, we're missing information on that stuff.
So like I said, maybe...
I love that. I love that animation.
Again, the thing that makes it better is also the sound design, because much like the 7 remake, this game understands how you need to feel every single punch thrown.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah. Also consider this though. having met Neon, I think that girl is a few cards short of a deck. Just going to say here and there.
Again, this makes me wonder the potential ramification if the whole Garland thing is like a cycle, which later makes one become like the Avatar case, which has the armor that ultimately the canonical Garland has, which would explain how this Jack is basically the last in the line of this potential cycle. But again, it's only speculations for now.
It does also make me wonder, in the grand scheme of things, maybe they're all just legit insane. Like, and again, like, okay, that could be an interesting thing for a Final Fantasy game where you're playing as
What
the
the
insane
fuck
bad
is
guys
that?
who
Darkness
want us to
too.
think that they're the good guys.
No, we're not doing this again.
Well, to be fair, that's the plot. Tell. When darkness fills the world, the darkness is kind of a part of this world story. Sorry, Teo, it has to be there.
Hello, bats.
All right, here we go.
Oh, this was in the
Once we go through
trailer.
here, there is no going out.
Hello?
Ifrit? Shinra?
No, surprisingly no, Jova. These are not Ifrit and Shiva. These are two elementals, actually.
Yeah, they're just elemental beings. A fire one and a water
If you don't
one.
remember, Jova, early Final Fantasy games, and starting with this, the first one, did had elemental, pure elemental enemies, which again taken from Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual.
Of course.
So obviously, use thunder spells on the water one and water spells on the fire one. Obviously. There we are.
Remember the good old days when the weakness to water used to be wood instead of electricity?
I don't think I
forgot what specific example you're mentioning, Jova.
Just, okay, I recall it being that, okay, there was definitely an era in games where electricity wasn't the go-to.
We're about to. Let's see.
Open wide. Oh shit!
And now both of them fuse into a single.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Whatever the hell that blob is.
That is less cute.
I don't think it was meant to be cute, Jova.
It was, they were cute at first.
They were. You and I clearly have have different definitions of the word cute.
I forgot if they did mention already, or if they did be married in TGS. Do we know if the composer is the same one as the Neo games?
No, actually, too. The composer is Ryo Yamazaki, the composer of Balan Wonderworld.
Right.
Yes, by the way, yes, you are. By the way, this is from the composer of Balan Wonderworld. Remember, he's a Square Enix composer, so.
Jesus.
Well, I mean, at least he's doing something that looks fun.
Yeah, trust me, Teo. This is a huge. Trust me, Teo. This is a huge step up for him in terms of working on a good game. There you go.
Ooh. Okay, I know about the tales of Balan Wonderworld, but I don't remember the music being that much criticized.
No, the music of Balan Wonderworld is the best thing about it, Teo.
We need a grunge version of the Victory fanfare, like.
The Dissidia games had one for the villains, but
That's all.
So, Teo, what do you think of my look for Neon?
Why does she doesn't
Is she
really
trying
need
to
the eye
cosplay as
patch?
2B or something?
Because it looks cool, Teo, like Big Boss.
God.
True, but it's visual impairment. That perception is important.
Also, yeah, Dwibs raises a point. Now she looks even more like 2B now.
I personally, I think she looks more like Kaine, like especially her default outfit. Holy crap! It's just screams Neo. Did Keiko Yoshida work on this game?
Well, okay, the original artwork, the person who did the artwork for Kaine was not Yoshida; it was someone else entirely. For the
That's true. Yeah,
but honestly, she reminds me instead of more of a grown-up, more adult version of Yona. Actually,
true. Yeah, the point is she looks like a Nier character. That's the basic point. Go on, Dibs. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I'll go first. Basically, it does look a lot. It does look a bit better than the previous demo one. The previous demo was pretty good, and gameplay wise, the story. I do admire it wearing its edginess on its sleeve and being proud of it. We'll have to see how well that translates into being a story, because based on this tone of game, and especially considering it's being a prequel to a game that, with the best will in the world, its story can basically be described as RPG story. It'd be interesting to see what additions it makes, whether they be good or bad. We won't know till the game comes out. Although I am excited to see how bizarre Square and Team Ninja... Is it Team Ninja that are making this
Team
game?
Ninja, yes, the team that made the
And
Neo
Team-
games.
And Team Ninja can make this game. It certainly got my intrigue, and I'll see if I can pick it up when it comes out in March.
All right, Shiri.
Basically the same as Dwibs. This seems like it's going to be fun at least. And that's it, really.
All right, Jova.
Yeah, again, my interest in this game has now risen significantly. Now that it seems to have more of a direction, and knowing that this will be a prequel for Final Fantasy I, essentially. Again, now, I'm starting to run on the theory that the characters are just legitimately insane, nothing's actually wrong, and they're just running around sunstroked out of their minds.
All right.
That, or maybe they are onto something, and we won't necessarily see Garland become the villain, but we will see him become Garland before he becomes the villain of Final Fantasy I, in the sense that,
Potentially.
like, well, you know, he'll end as, like, the knight here and there. Like, we more or less do know how he became the villain in 1. He got corrupted and whatnot.
We'll have to wait and see. Done?
Yeah, looks like it'll be fun.
Teo.
Sure. I mentioned most of what we had to do during the gameplay, so it still looks interesting. I wish it was a bit more gloomy because that gave it a bit more personality. But whatever, the gameplay can suffice to compensate. I did also check the voice acting in the meantime. I don't know exactly the actual names, but in true Square Enix fashion, for most of the recent project, most of these people are TV actors. I think only the one of the magenta hair guy is actually voiced in anime beforehand as well. But most of them are just from TV series. Very interesting, actually. No, still look interesting. I want to see where it is going. I wouldn't mind not knowing the twist myself. I could have guessed it might have happened, but I consider also this is a Souls-like game. The pleasure of discovery, as it's normally referred to, is usually a key component. So I wouldn't mind that, but we'll still see because there's still a lot of speculation to be said. Next.
Yeah. No, this is actually, as someone who actually played these demos, the gameplay is a lot of fun. And like I said, making things explode never gets old to me. Hell, that cactuar animation is one of the best things I've seen in a while in a game. Oh man. Like I saw Teo, can you imagine, Teo, what would be the making Oh no, I'll continue for now. The game, and God, I love, like Dwib said, I love how it sincerely and proudly it wears its edginess on its sleeve, because that's the last thing I want. If they try to go for the self-aware, look how self-aware we are of how stupid this is. No, that's not what I want. No, I'm tired of snarky writing in media nowadays. Like just openly embrace your plot and your tone, and people will just appreciate it for what it is, or they don't. That's just how it is. And not to mention the fact that it's sincere. Again, the room wouldn't be nearly as funny if it was self-aware. The fact that it is sincere and thinks it's amazing is what makes it funny, and this is the same case. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to having a lot of fun with this one. So. All right.
See for the main game, I guess.
Could you imagine too?
When is the main game due to release?
March 18th.
March 18th.
Maybe we'll
It's
get
a bit
another
slightly
demo
delayed.
before.
Slightly delayed from the original release date, if I recall correctly, but not by much.
God, I'm drawing a blank right now. That other iconic FF monster, the one that kills you in one hit. Tell me. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. That's it, Tonberry. I don't know, for some reason I was drawing a blank. Could you imagine too, how would the making a Tonberry explode animation look like?
If those are the guesses, Jack stabs him with his own knife.
Oh my god! Just for that alone, 10 out of 10. There you go. just for that alone. Looking forward to it. See ya, buddy.